What's going on, y'all? We're back and we're doing grades today. The NBA draft ended last night. Call me Professor Jamie because I'm looking at every single one of your teams and I'm going to give them a grade for each and every pick. We're going to go in order of the actual picks themselves. We're not going to do alphabetical by teams, and if your team had multiple picks, we'll go over those picks as well. I just thought that made the most sense to me, so that's how I'm doing it. And we're just going to jump right in. First overall pick obviously was AJ Debonsa, and there's not really much to say about the pick. They had the first overall pick. AJ makes the most sense. He fits in next to Trae Young, Alex Sarr, AD. If he stays, he fits right into that like small forward position pretty easily. I really don't have much to say. It's an A+. Wizards fans, be happy. You won a lottery in a year where it just perfectly fit your roster. You did not end up with Zachary Risachet like some people did. Utah Jazz had the second overall pick and they took Darren Peterson. This pick also makes a lot of sense. I think if you went the other direction with Cam Boozer, there was a little bit more lineup management you had to do. Getting Darren Peterson here, he can slide right into that 2 position. You didn't really have anyone that fulfilled that need. You do start to think about what you do with like Isaiah Collier and Keontae George a little bit, because Collier had a pretty good season and he's probably going to be looking to start at some point pretty soon. But you worry about that when you get there. Maybe you slide DP down to the 3 and you move Lord Markkanen at some point. I don't know. But you do have some things to think about with Jaren Jackson stuff there. So I'm only going to give it an A. I think it is the right pick for them. But, you know, there's some more things to think about in terms of like roster construction. But it's still a great pick. And I think DP will work out very well for them. Picking third was the Grizzlies. They had 2 picks. But first we'll talk about their third pick. That's going to be Cam Boozer. He fell to you right at 3. I think he was the perfect fit for you, even more so than, maybe not more so than AJ, but more so than Darren Peterson. He fits right in. You don't have a lot of depth there at that forward position. So getting someone like Cam Boozer that fits right in and can be the start of the building blocks can be huge. He also can play next to Ja Morant if you do happen to keep him. So I'm going to go ahead and actually give this one an A+ as well. Picking at 21 though, the Grizzlies, can't remember if they made a trade or not, but at 21 they got Karim Lopez. I think also is an amazing pick to get in the 20s. He's a high upside swing pick, also at that forward position, which they need help there. He could develop into something pretty big for them if he gets his scoring together and becomes a better defender. Right now he's pretty raw, but he has a lot of tools, a lot of potential, being a 6'9" big wing. I really liked him as a prospect, so the Grizzlies getting him this late in the draft, the first round, I think is great. Similar to like the Nate Edmonton pick, but a lot later in the draft. So I'm actually gonna give that also an A+. Grizzlies, as did great in this draft. Fans should be happy. Worry about the job stuff later. Next up, we got the Bulls, who picked at 4. Got Caleb Wilson. I think this also was a pretty easy pick. It was pretty much locked in once they got 4. They weren't going to get the top 3 guys. They were going to get that 4th guy. The one everyone's board was Caleb Wilson. They did the thing. They got Caleb Wilson, and I do think he fits their lineup. They do have they kind of need a little bit of everything, being honest. But the forward position was somewhere that they were looking to get better at, even with Buzelis being there. You know, you wanted another guy, maybe someone a little more defensive oriented, and that's what you got out of Caleb Wilson. And maybe he can be a small ball 5 as well. So I'm going to grade that as an A. I think it's a great pick. But at 15, the Bulls picked again, and they went with Dalen Swain. This pick, I'm a lot more iffy on. See, Dalen Swain feels like a player that you could have got a lot later down the line if you wanted him. And you got him at 15. A lot of teams were trading down or trading up, removing picks, especially later in the draft. And he feels like a guy that you could have called one of these teams and be like, hey, do you want the 15? You give us like the 20, the 23rd, something like that. Like, and I think you could have still got Dalen Swain if you wanted him. But if you really feel like this is your guy, go get him. I just don't know if this was the pick at 15. A good scorer, he's a good slasher, and he could probably be a good defender, and he can play probably the 2 or the 3. So he's a player that fits the lineup right now. But he does not have a great jump shot. And if that jump shot doesn't come around, this feels like a pick that just like, again, you could have got way later down the line, because he's just a guy that if you develop him, he's going to be good. If he doesn't come around, it's kind of a waste of a pick in my opinion. I'm actually going to give that one a C+. I don't hate the fit. It's just you could have got this guy if you wanted him later down the line. Because I don't hate Dalen Swain. It's just, again, seems like you could have got him later in the draft. 5, the Clippers only had one pick. Clippers only had one pick. Then pick number 5, they got Keaton Wagler. Again, I think this is a pretty simple pick. If you didn't trade this pick and try to get some more assets in, I think Keaton Wagler was your guy. I don't think you pick anyone else here. Yeah, I don't really have much to say. He fits in right next to Darius Garland as a 2. He's like 6'5", 6'6". He can play next to Kawhi Leonard as well. He's a good playmaker, a good scorer. He can be a secondary ball handler. Maybe he can be the point guard of the future. Don't know, but if you were going to take a player instead of trading that pick, I think Keaton Wagler is your guy. Yeah, he's your guy. I'm going to give it an A grade. The only reason not an A plus is I think there were some things they could do if they wanted to trade, if they had a better vision of what their future really is, if they want to compete right now, still want to try to contend, or if they really want to look towards the future. There were some other things that you possibly could have done with this pick. So I'm only going to give it an A. Next up were the Nets. They picked at 6 and 28. At number 6, they picked Michael Brown Jr. This pick was interesting to me. It wasn't super surprising. We had heard some rumors about Michael Brown and the Nets having some connections to each other. But I still wanted them to go A-Cuff here. I think he's the bigger talent, the bigger upside, in my opinion. But Michael Brown Jr. immediately comes in and is able to play next to some of those guards that you took last year. So it makes sense fit-wise. I just don't know if Brooklyn was really the spot for Michael Brown Jr. in my opinion. I don't know if I see him really thriving there. And again, in this type of draft, you see it's very guard heavy. You took 4 guards last year. You probably were better off trading down with someone, getting like 2 picks later in the class and being able to pick like a big or a wing, getting someone like a Yaxel or an Ademar or Morez Johnson, someone later down the line, maybe 2 guys that can help out in the future instead of taking Michael Brown Jr., who can immediately come in and play that 2 position for you. But I just don't know if he's necessarily your guy. So I'm actually gonna give this a B grade because I still think the talent is there. I just would have liked to see them go a different direction if they decided that Darius A-Cuff wasn't their guy. But at 28 though, they took Joshua Jefferson, and I love this pick. Late first round pick, a guy with high upside, point forward type potential. The question is his perimeter shooting, but he scores very well in the paint. He has the post presence. He has a great defense. He's just a good player that if you develop those work around the edges, really getting him a jump shot, he could be someone that you look at like, dang, I can't believe he fell this far. And again, it's the 28th pick, so you don't really look at it like, oh man, you know, you needed a forward, you got one. He has a lot of high potential, high ceiling, which is what I think a team like the Nets needs, especially late in a draft. So I'm going to actually give that a grade. Next up were the Kings. They had 7 and 29. At 7, they went with Darius A-Cuff, which fell right into their lap. Once the Nets didn't go with him, I was pretty confident they were going to get A-Cuff, and it makes sense. It's the best talent on the board. They need whatever they can get, and they're lacking at pretty much every position outside of maybe the bigs. So he's someone that can play next to the Maxime and Dylan Cardwell and run that pick and roll, and then he's a great scorer. He can replace what you lost with like a De'Aaron Fox, hopefully. I think it's a great pick, great fit. Sacramento has something to look forward this year. I'm going to give it an A grade. At 29, you got Alex Caravan. Not sure. Anyway, not a big wing, but a big shooter. It's about 6'7", shoots, plays with IQ. It's going to space the floor, can cut, can score in the flow of an offense. Obviously not a shot creator, okay passer, not a great defender. He's your typical later in a draft shooter. Not mad at the pick. They need some spacing. He feels like a guy that will be a rotational player as long as he can be an average defender, because you know he's going to provide at the bare minimum shooting for you. And if that shot is consistent, you just want him to be able to stay on the court defensively. And he could be a pick that in a later round that you feel pretty confident in. Not a high upside pick, but just someone that you know can be on the court. So I'm going to give that a B grade. I like the pick. I just think there were other directions they could have gone if they wanted shooting with some higher upside with guys like Isaiah Evan, even like a Malik Thomas. So there were some other options there still available at 29, or even if you went later down the draft and traded. So I don't know. I like the pick. I get what they're going for. I'm only going to give it a B though, because I think there were some better options. Next up were the Hawks, who picked at 8 and 23. Start off by saying I didn't love their draft. At 8, they went Kingston Flemings. He was the best talent available on the board. I just don't know if he's the fit for them. Hawks are already a team that struggled with spacing, having Dyson Daniels on the floor, Onyeka Okongwu, Jalen Johnson, all guys who don't really play outside the perimeter as much as you would want in the way basketball's played today. Then you get Kingston Flemings, a guy who the question has been, how much 3-point shooting does he provide? Shoots it at a high clip, low volume, interesting shot mechanics, shoots a lot of mid-ranges, likes to get downhill, likes to get to the paint. On a team that already has people that can do that for them, it feels like an odd fit, and maybe he will fit in very well. They do need guard play, but I don't know if this was the guard play for you. And again, once you lost out on like Acuff and Michael Brown Jr., who I think would have been more your speed, but you kind of didn't expect to be here, maybe you should have traded down and got something else. Because I think if you waited even later in the draft, you could have got LeBaron Philon Jr. If you really wanted that Kingston Fleming style, you could have got that later down the draft. A little bit different, but obviously the same idea as a scoring guard that can get downhill and play make. And he went at 23. So if you traded down, you could have potentially got a better big and a better, and in my opinion, a better guard. But to say you just take the best talent available at 8 and get Kingston Flemings. So with that, I'm gonna give it a B-. Then later, 23, they got Zuby Ejiofor. I just looked up his name. I already forgot it. They got Zuby though. I get what they're going for here. They get some rebounding, they get some paint protection. They've been needing that. They just weren't. They got killed on the glass in the playoffs last year in the Knicks. But he doesn't give you size. He's still about 6'8", 6'9", maybe. So he doesn't really give you that size you were looking for, right? The big that can slash, can finish really well, can play defense, really great rebounder, really going to hustle, really strong. But I think you really still wanted like some real size, right? But with that being said, to get him at 23 is good. I just think that maybe you could have talked to some other teams and potentially traded up and got someone else, or just did something else with that pick. I don't know. I'll be interested to see how much Zuby actually gets playing time and what his development looks like in the NBA, especially if he never truly develops as a floor spacer. Next up, the Mavs picked at 9. I think they also picked at 25. There was a bunch of movement on the trades. Doesn't really matter anymore. But 9, they went Marez Johnson Jr. So there have been reports, of course, because Dusty May got hired as their coach, former Michigan coach, that one of these Michigan players are going to go at 9. There have also been reports that the owner of the Mavs was like, no, like we still have our draft board. We have our guys. We're not going to change what we're doing because of Dusty May. We know who we're picking. So that was a lie. They went Marez Johnson Jr., which I am very confident that if Dusty May was not their coach, they would not have gone him at 9. I think it was a little bit of a reach. I get what they're going for. He basically is going to come in and replace what Daniel Gafford was giving you, because it seems like Daniel Gafford wants to move on. So you get him, block shots. He's athletic. Just feels like at 9, though, you wanted a little bit more. And this pick could be a pick that people kind of do sleep on in the future, like even back to thinking of like the Derek Lively pick. A lot of people were a little like iffy on that pick at the time, but these type of centers are seeing value in the NBA. It's just you kind of know what you're getting from them, but maybe that's not a problem. My issue has more to do with the fact that you picked him at 9. Feels like he definitely would have been there later down the line. And again, teams were willing to trade picks. But if you feel like this is your guy, go get him. But you probably could have got maybe 2 picks and then still got Marez Johnson Jr. later. That's just me. So I'm going to give it a C+. They also picked up Sergio De Larea. He actually seems like a pretty good pick later down in the draft. Potential point guard, shooting guard, small forward, some versatility. Can score, can shoot, can play make. You want to see how he holds up on the defensive side. Feels like a rotational player that would just always be able to be helpful. A lot of foreigners, when they come to the league, generally are just at bare minimum able to just come in and immediately start giving you productive minutes. Feels like he'll be able to do the same, and I think he fits into what they're trying to do right now. So I'll give that pick a B+. Next up, we had the Bucks, who obviously made the big Giannis trade. They were picking at 10 and 13. At 10, because the Mavericks didn't take Braden Burries, guess who fell to them? Braden Burries. And I love this pick. Pick is awesome to me. Is it the flashiest pick? No. but he already is going to come in and I think fit right next to what you're doing with like Tyler Hero and Ryan Rollins, these guys who now starting to feel like your future. And yet he's going to come in there and start playing defense, maybe potentially be a future point guard. He's going to score, he's going to shoot. I love the pick for him. The talent is there. Great to get at 10. Didn't think he'd be there, so I'm going to give that an A+. Next up at 13, they did pick up Nate Ament, which is what people would project him to pick at 10, especially before the trade. But for them to get at 13, I like a lot more, especially with that not being their only pick in the first round. I still don't love the pick. I get what they're going for. They're going for high upside here. And I think combined with the Braden Burries pick, I like it a lot more. I still think there was other talent on the board that I would have preferred to see them go for, or potentially again, just look to move this pick and maybe get something next year. So I'll give it a B-. If Nate Ament turns out to be something great, then great. But if he doesn't, it does feel like there was other things you could have still done with this lottery pick. Next up, the Warriors, they only had one pick. They were picking at 11 and they went Yaxel. Pretty much everyone agrees that this was the guy. They said it themselves that on their board, he was number 2 behind Cam Boozer. That was the only person they wanted more than him. And it makes sense for what the Warriors want to do in terms of like the team basketball, having a player like Steph Curry and Draymond around him. Yaxel makes perfect sense. He fell right to their laps. It's a pretty simple pick in my opinion. He's going to come in and immediately be able to play, maybe even start and be, I think, fit right in the Steve Kerr and the Warriors system. Going to shoot, he's going to defend, he's going to be able to catch lobs, he's going to defend. I think I already said that, but I like Yaxel. All right, he's a good player. Makes sense. I'll give it an A. Yeah. Next up were my OKC Thunder. They picked at 12 and 16. Actually traded up from 17 to get 16. I don't really know why, but whatever. They traded a bunch of seconds. Who cares? In 12, they wanted Daimara. This pick, once the board started shaking up and it became apparent you weren't going to get Braden Burries, you weren't going to get Yaxel, Daimara was kind of the only pick I think that made sense at this point for OKC and what they want to do. You get some size, you get some shot blocking. I personally don't love the pick, but it's kind of all that was left for them to pick there, unless they were looking to trade down, which I mean also is an option, but I'll give it a B+. I want to see what he does. It makes sense. They want the size. They could potentially be losing out on Hartenstein. They want someone that can play in the front court next to Chet. Daimara can potentially do that. He's also a good passer, potentially a stretch big. It makes sense. I just think that you could have got a little more creative. This was kind of just like their only real pick left at this point, so it's only going to get a B+ for me. At 16, they traded up a pick, you know, big deal, to get Bennett Sturts. Again, another pick I'm not mad at. Just don't even know if he'll really play for us. He's already an older player, so you're going to look for him to get minutes pretty soon. I don't even know if we have the minutes for him. He's a point guard that shoots, can run out the pick and roll, can score out the pick and roll very well. We do need some more outside shooting, but we kind of just got some of this from trading for Jared McCain. So again, I don't know where a smaller guard fits into our lineup, especially a smaller guard that doesn't really defend. I'll be curious to see how much minutes he actually gets. I think the talent is there at 16, so I'll give it a B grade. Next up, picking at 14 and 18 were the Hornets. At 14, they went with Hans Steinbach. I like the pick. It makes sense. They're just trying to get some talent in the door. I do wonder with the Hornets if at some point they're going to start looking at defense. Like, that is a question mark that I have for the team, is like, who's guarding out on the perimeter? There weren't really any guys like that in this class, especially around this pick. So I get them going with Hans, who can potentially play next to some of their other bigs or be the starting five for them. I like the pick. He's offensively talented. I think he'll run the floor very well, like LaMelo and Brandon Miller and Knipple. Don't mind the pick. I do wonder if they might have gone a different direction though, like what that could have meant. Maybe if they went more like a wing type player, maybe traded up to try to get one of those wing type players. I don't know, but I'll give it a B+ grade. At 18 though, pick that I liked less was Christian Anderson. He's a small guard, can shoot the ball really well, great scorer, good playmaker, but he's only 6'1", right? And you already have good guard play in LaMelo Ball and Kon Knipple. So I'm just wondering where he fits in, right? You're obviously going to start with him off the bench, but I'm like, even in those type of lineups, what does that look like when he's on the floor with, like, I don't know, a Grant Williams and a Kon Knipple? Like, what does that backcourt mix match looks like? Are you running lineups with him and LaMelo Ball? I don't know, because he's a really small guard. He can shoot it very well, but again, that's not really a need when I think of the Hornets. I think there were some other guys that could have gone with here at 18 that would have just fit in more perfectly. but I think the upside is what they're looking for with Christian Anderson as potentially like a 6-man off the bench that's just going to come in and get buckets for them. But I don't love the pick for them. I'm gonna give it a C+. Now the Pistons were picking next at 17. This is a pick that I absolutely love. They went with Ibuka Okori, and he's going to come in and do exactly what they were wanting out of someone like a Dennis Schroeder like last year, where he's just going to be a backup guard to Cade, comes in, immediately just starts attacking the paint, getting downhill, setting up teammates, creating, and being able to just do something with the ball and shot create when Cade's not on the floor. And I think at 17, he was the guy, just someone that can just get downhill, attack the basket, and create opportunities for others. I love it. It's just something that they've been lacking since Cade's been there. So I'm going to give that an A-. Next up picking were the Raptors. At 19, they went with Allen Graves. This was a weird pick to me because the Raptors have consistently been kind of drafting like a lot of similar types of players and a lot of wings. And in this class, they go for a 6'9" kind of Swiss Army knife wing. And I'm just like, is there even minutes for him on this Raptors team? Already has just a lot of depth at that wing position. They did also just get Jamal Shed, so maybe they didn't want to go point guard, but that center position is something that they still were lacking, and there were centers on this board here. And I think even if you do go guard, you could probably get some more scoring options as well, because you don't look at Quickly as someone that's going to be there long term. So there just was other options, in my opinion, that could immediately come in and help the team. And I just don't know where Allen Graves fits into the rotation. And he's going to do a lot of things that you feel like you're getting out of players that you currently have. But hey, he's a good player. It's not a bad pick. It's just, I don't know if that was the perfect pick for the Raptors. So I'm going to give it a B-. Spurs were up next. They picked at 20 and 26. At 20, they went Jaden Quaintance. I don't like this pick, just straight up. I get what they were going for, getting another big in the locker room behind Victor Wembanyama. But I think if you're going for a backup big to your star center, you want someone that's a little bit more steady. Jaden Quaintance has already had injury concerns. They're even saying now he might miss his rookie season completely due to a surgery. And it's like, if you were going to go big, you want someone that you know can come in and consistently provide minutes when Wemby's not on the floor. And he's already having injury and health problems. So it feels like this is a pick that's a swing pick, but you're a team that doesn't need the swing pick. You want the consistency, and that's not what you're getting from Jaden Quaintance. He's a good player. He's going to provide good defense when he's on the court. But if he can't stay on the court, then it's like you just wasted a big man pick. But it seems like they're kind of going back on that on the next pick. So for that one, I'll give it a C, because I just straight up feel like it's a high upside pick for a team that doesn't need a high upside pick. Doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. At 26, though, they went with another big, and I actually like this pick better. It's kind of lowered by the other pick, though, because you just drafted two bigs in the first round when you already have Wembanyama, and they're both two bigs that you don't really foresee playing power forward. Maybe if you run Wemby at the 4, I don't know, but neither of them are spacing bigs. But they went Terrence Reed. He's honestly pretty similar to Quaintance. They both don't play outside the perimeter. They both block shots. They both have good physicals. They both can finish. I get what they're going for here. I like the pick better than Quaintance because he feels more steady, like someone that you can just rely on to come in and give you minutes. So I'm just going to give it a B. Don't really have much else to say about him, honestly. I think he'll be a solid center, and it makes sense for the Spurs to get him. Next up, 76ers were picking, and at number 2, they went with LeBaron Philon. This was just very much just picking the best talent on the board. Again, I can accept that. 76ers have shown to be a team that would do that in a draft. And yeah, I think he can be their backup point guard of the future. I think he fits with what the team wants to do, and I think the talent is there. So at 22, I think this is a great pick. And if he ends up being better than projected, you walk away very happy with this pick. I don't think there's much else on the board that I'm like, they have to go with here. So taking the talent makes sense to me. I'm going to give them an A-. Next up, the Lakers, they traded their pick up one. Again, don't understand these trading up ones, whatever. They went with Cameron Carr. Love the Cameron Carr pick. Fits in perfectly next to Luka, potentially LeBron, Austin Reeves, whoever you end up having there next year. Austin Reeves did just sign that extension, but Cameron Carr can run that 2 or the 3. He can be the backup. Very athletic, can potentially be a good defender. He's going to shoot the ball. I think next to Luka, this is the exact type of guard that you want being in that backcourt with him. So I love it. Being able to get him at 24 too, I think he could have gone as high as like 15 or 16. So I'm going to give that an A-. The Celtics were picking at 27. They went with Chris Sinak Jr. I don't hate this pick. I think if you really were looking for a backup big, there was potential for you to trade up in this draft and to go get one of the better bigs that already went. on this board, especially if you're looking for someone that's going to really play minutes for you. And I think the Celtics are looking for that. They don't seem to be really targeting anyone right now. And if they don't go get a big, Chris Sinac's going to play real minutes for them. And I just don't know if he's going to be ready. He's not quite the rim protector that you want. He's a decent rebounder. He projects to be like a stretch big type of guy, good physicals, good offensive things, but you probably want to go get one of these more defensive monsters for your team. Then again, though, there's not too many other stretch bigs in this, so Chris Sinac does seem like a good fit there. I just think if you really wanted someone that was going to play real minutes, you go get someone else. So I'll give it a B-. Last team to pick in the draft, with the last pick even, were the Suns. They actually traded for this pick again. This pick was the one that got traded, I think, 3 times, I believe. But Koa Pete ends up in Phoenix. Arizona boy, stays in the hometown. Don't hate the pick, don't love it. Especially after you just got Rasheer Fleming last year. You're getting 2 wings with some good upside. Again, I just don't know where he fits into your future. And you're a team now that has to start really think about what you're building as you get further away from what you were with like Devin Booker and Chris Paul and Devin Booker and Mikal Bridges. And then you went and got KD. Now you don't have KD. Now you got like Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks. So you start to really looking at like what your future is. And when I see the picks of like Koa Pete and Rasheer Fleming, I'm starting to see an idea of where you're going. But I'm still like, you're going for more picks that aren't really helping you now, are kind of building towards the future, but you're kind of in this weird space right now. So I don't know where Koa Pete fits into everything. He's a good player, has good potential, especially if he gets a jump shot. I just don't know where he fits into your team currently today. So I'm going to give that pick a B-. And that wraps up the entire first round. And I'm not going to do a second round because it doesn't matter, except for sometimes when it really does matter. And now draft season's over, so I got to think of new content. I got to actually work, figure out what I'm going to record outside of trades and once the season starts. So got things to think about, but it's cool though. We're going to keep yapping in front of a mic because I don't know ball.